Hello, students, and welcome back. Today, we're continuing our journey into the story of the village of Palampur. Now, as we already know, farming is really the heart of this village, isn't it? But the farmers there face a really big problem. You see, the land they have for farming is fixed. It doesn't get any bigger. So the big question is, how do they manage to grow more and more food year after year on the very same piece of land? Well, that's exactly what we're going to explore today.
Okay, so here's our plan for today's lesson. First, we'll look at Palampur's lifeline, farming. Then we will understand the core problem, that the land is fixed. After that, we'll look at the first solution, which is all about irrigation. Then comes the second solution, something called multiple cropping. We'll see the result of all this, which is a higher yield. And finally, we'll ask, what's next? All right, let's begin with our first section, farming, Palampur's lifeline.
So, you see, in a village like Palampur, and this is true for many, many villages all over India, farming is the main production activity. It's not just a way to earn money, it's a way of life. Everything really revolves around it. The well-being of the families, of the entire community, it's all tied to how well the farms are doing.
Now look at this. This chart shows us just how many people depend on farming. You can see that a huge 75%, that's 3/4 of the working people in Palampur, depend on farming for their livelihood. Just imagine that. If you were to meet 4 working people from the village, 3 of them would be involved in farming. That's how important it is. Okay, so we know farming is super important, but there's a big problem that every single farmer faces. Let's move to our next section to understand this. The core problem. Land is fixed. Now, students, this is a very important point, so please pay close attention. The land area under cultivation is practically fixed. You can't just create more land, can you? It's a natural limit, and this is the biggest challenge for the farmers. They have to work within this fixed boundary. And to give you an idea of what fixed means, look at this number, 0. Since the year 1960, there has been 0 expansion in the land used for farming in Palampur. Whatever wasteland or other land was there, it was all converted to farmland a long time ago. So there's simply no new land to be found. So this brings us to a really interesting puzzle, doesn't it? If the land is fixed, if it's not increasing at all, then how can farmers possibly grow more food? Think about it for a moment. The population is growing, needs are growing, but the land is the same. How is this possible?
Well, the farmers of Palampur were very clever. They found a way. And their first big solution, it had to do with water.
You see, everything changed when electricity came to the village. Before electricity, farmers used something called Persian wheels. You can imagine it was a very slow, traditional method, often using bullocks to draw water from a well. It could only irrigate very small fields. But then, with electricity, came the electric tube wells, and this was a game changer. These tube wells could pull out much more water and irrigate much larger areas of land, and so much more effectively. So what was the impact of these tube wells? Well, it was huge. For the first time, farmers had a reliable source of water, not just during the rains, but all through the year. In fact, by the mid-1970s, the entire cultivated area of Palampur, that's 200 hectares, was irrigated. And here's the most important part. This meant they were no longer just dependent on the monsoon rains. They could grow crops even when it wasn't raining. Now, with water available all year, this opened up a whole new way of thinking for the farmers. This brings us to their second amazing solution. It's all about how they use their time. And this solution has a name. It is called multiple cropping. Let me explain what that means. Multiple cropping is simply to grow more than one crop on a piece of land during the year. It's a very simple idea, but a very powerful one. So let's see how this worked in Palampur during the year. During the rainy season, or the Kharif season, they would grow jowar and bajra. These crops were mainly used as cattle feed. Then, during the winter season, the rabi season, they would sow their fields with wheat. This was the main crop for the family to eat and to sell in the market. But that's not all. In between these 2 seasons, from October to December, many farmers would grow a third crop, potato. So on the same field, they were growing 3 different crops in a single year. Isn't that amazing? So as you can see, their fields were always busy. We had wheat, bajra, potato, and some farmers even grew sugarcane. Sugarcane is a bit different because it's harvested just once a year, but it was another important crop for them. Now, here's something I want to make very clear, because it's a common point of confusion. Multiple cropping is not about using big tractors or new machines. It is about being smart. It's about using the different seasons to your advantage to get the most out of your land.
So let's put it all together. The farmers had a good system of irrigation and they used multiple cropping. What was the result of all this? Let's find out.
The result of this is a higher yield. Now, what is yield? It's a very simple concept. Yield is the amount of crop that is produced on a given piece of land during a single season. And you can see why this is so important, right? If you cannot increase your land, the only way to get more is to increase your yield.
And this quote really ties everything together for us. It says, the main reason why farmers are able to grow 3 different crops in a year is due to the well-developed system of irrigation. So do you see the connection? It was the good irrigation system that made multiple cropping possible. And both of these things together led to higher production, more yield from the very same land.
All right, so it's time to summarize what we have learned today and think about what comes next for Palampur.
Let's do a quick recap. It's very simple. We started with a problem. The land for farming is fixed. The first solution was irrigation, which gave a reliable water supply. This led to the second solution, multiple cropping, using the same land for many crops. And the final result was higher production and a higher yield from that same piece of land. So we have seen one very effective way to grow more from the same land. But as we end our lesson today, I want to leave you with a question. Is this the only way? Is there another way to increase yield from the same land? Well, there is, and we will be discussing that in our next class. Thank you.